Okay, Rabotai, welcome to module number 6. We have declared war, we drafted our army, we've motivated them, we know what we're doing here. Do we just take aim and fire, or do we have to stop the escalation? Do we have to call out for peace, or can we just go? What does the Torah expect of us? The Torah says in Parashat Ki Tetzei actually that you have to start with peace. Just join me in looking at over the parasha together briefly. We saw already the parasha of etc. about the mishruach milchama, that the Kohen has to get up there, speak to the people, tell them not to get afraid, and then the shotrim get up and they say who has to go home. And then right after that, the Torah tells us that when you come to a city and you want to fight against it, you have to first call out, proclaim peace. Let's make peace. Why should we make war? If they say, you know what, let's make peace, great. They open up to you. So guess what? It's a vassal state. They have to become your tributary. They have to pay you a tribute and become your servants. And they have to do both of those. Plus, the Rambam says become a ger toshav. But if not that, then guess what? So then great, you go to war, you can even besiege the city. If you kill all the men in the city, so you leave the women, the children, the animals, and all the spoils. You can keep the spoils. And that's great. God gave that to you. That's what you should do for all the cities, whether it be Rechokot or close by. However, the Kenaani cities, the Kenaani nations here, Hashem will give you to them for your inheritance. Lo techayeh kol neshama. Do not leave any of them alive. Rather, ki acharem tachrimem. You should surely, utterly destroy them. The chiti, the emori, the Kenaani, apirizi, achiviva. You see, kasher tzivicha. Adonai Elohecha. But why? Why does God say to eradicate these people? What did they ever do to you? The answer is Torah says, God testifies that they are an anathema to the Jewish people. They shouldn't teach you how to do their abominable acts. Asher asul Elohim, that they do with their gods. And then it will cause you to sin. That sounds pretty good. And the Torah tells us, by the way, when you're sieging a city, to grab it, to conquer it, you shouldn't destroy its foliage. You shouldn't destroy its trees. And this is the broader sugya about hashcheit, right? Don't use the trees to make yourself a siege rampant. Don't use the trees to do that. Fine, good. Now back to our parasha. This is the summary of that. So we said one more time: if they're interested in peace, great. They have to pay tribute and be your servants. If they're not interested, then you go to war, and you kill all the males, and you leave the women and the children alive, and you keep the spoils for yourself. So it's interesting to note that this just comes on the heels of Mishruach Milchama, which is a parasha of Milchemet HaReshut. Is this only by Milchemet HaReshut also? Or is it also by Milchemet Mitzvah? So if you look at the parasha, it continues and says, except for the Kenaani nations. So it sounds like, yeah, if it's a Milchemet HaReshut, as it says, do this for all of the faraway cities, then this is the rule. That's Milchemet HaReshut. But in Eretz Yisrael, when it's the Kenaani nations, in other words, Milchemet Mitzvah, then you have to kill everybody who's alive. Now, in general, for the Milchemet HaReshut, why do you have to leave the women alive? So the reason why the Torah tells us, the Sefer HaChinuch explains that we don't kill the women and the children, is because the Torah, there's no need to. They're not combatants. They're not engaging in combat. They're not here. They're not a problem to us. And as such, it would be achzari, it would be cruel to kill them for no reason. Unnecessary brutality. So for that reason, we don't kill them, but we kill the men. Men usually engage in combat. It's questionable if the men are not combatants, if you have to kill them or not. If different sources indicate different things. It doesn't, certainly there's no singular voice on that topic. It seems like there's a machloket. Plus, it helps to have extra servants, the Chinuch explains. We're not aiming to become cruel, and killing people aimlessly, wantonly, leads to unnecessary brutality in terms of our midot, and that's not what we are looking for. These people are not worth it. Now, in terms of the exception for the 7 Kenaani nations, we do kill everybody, because the Torah says that they are anathema. So it's important to realize, well, what level is this accept? When Torah says, if they're interested in peace, then go to war. except for the Kenaani nations. Kill all of them. Does that mean don't even ask for peace? Or only if they're not interested in peace within this over here? Where does this go? So the Rambam explains that it's under here. That if not, go to war. And depending on if they are not Kenaani nations, then don't follow this. And if they are Kenaani nations, then follow that. Not that you skip the peace thing altogether. And the Rambam learns that from a Yerushalmi about Yehoshua Hanavi, who sent 3 letters ahead of time before crossing the Ardennes to the Kenaanim. The first one said, you guys should run. The second one said, let's make peace. And the third one said, okay, if you're not going to make peace, let's go to war. So you see from Yehoshua already that we offer to make peace. First, even with Kenaani nations, even when it is a milchemet mitzvah. So you could arguably say today that our wars in Medinat Yisrael are milchemet mitzvah, and as such, number one, we're obligated to reach out and try to make peace, and we've done that quite a few times more than sane, or necessary. So that we checked off that box. And point number 2 is, once we are engaged in the milchemet mitzvah, I'm just going to ruffle some feathers. Is it so important to make sure that we don't harm people who are not active terrorists? It sounds like it's not. It sounds like we kill everybody. Although this could be specifically by the 7 Kenaani nations and not by all milchemet mitzvahs. That's important to figure out. We'll have to return to that. Now, in terms of the Kenaani nations, what's so bad about them? The Torah tells us that you shouldn't learn from their practices. That's what they did. They did Molech and they did other such practices, throughout their time, And as such, we would want to make sure that we don't replicate them. And the reason being is very simple. Aretz mekia yoshvea. If we act abominably in the land, then the land will spit us out and vomit us. And that's exactly what happened. We didn't get rid of all the Kenaani nations. We learned from their ways. Sefer Melachim is peppered and unfortunately not really deluged with avodah zarah practices that the Jewish people did. And it led to the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash and the exile of our people for exactly that reason. So it makes a lot of sense that, yes, it sounds cruel and brutal. Number one, remember, it's just 7 nations, and it's because God said so. It's not because we don't have any moral compass. It's not because we think wanton murder is okay. Chas v'shalom. God said that these specific people are dangerous for us, and therefore we have to get rid of them. But in general, we do believe, and we have a very strong, and this is part of our very strong moral compass, that this is the right thing to do, the men, the women, and the children, because they do not deserve to live simply because they could ruin God's people. And that's what God said, and that's the right thing to do, because unapologetically, we believe that God is the ultimate truth. And it's clear that God also does not value brutality. This is the exception to the rule. There is one more exception, notably Amalek. Amalek, we have the mitzvah to remember and to wipe out Amalek for what they did to us on the way out of Egypt, that they attacked us suddenly without provocation. And just to give you a mashal, after dropping 2 nuclear bombs, the United States was certainly the biggest, strongest superpower in the world. And for somebody else to come and start up at the USA would kind of impugn, would kind of penetrate that screen of safety that everyone thinks that it's the biggest superpower. And so too, the Ribono Shel Olam took us out of Mitzrayim. He bent the fabric of nature with 10 Makot and Kiryat Yamsuf, and he demonstrated to the world that he is the sole proprietor, sole founder, creator, and executive decider of how the world should run. He is the one administrator of the world. And he showed that to the entire world. And he said that the Jewish people are my people. So for Amalek to come and attack the Jewish people when no one else would ever think to do such a thing, undermines the glory of God, the rulership of God, and his authority. That's why that God can't stand Amalek, because Amalek got in the way of God showing his glory, of God's malchut, his kingdom being made so clear. And this goes in hand with what we said last time about how the shofar, the role of the shofar at war, and really every war, is to legalot et shem shamayim, legalot malchut Hashem. Just like as one politician said after the Iran 300 missiles failed, the next morning, I believe he said that lo amut ki ehyeh. And then he gave a whole speech about how we're so great and so special and the Israeli people. It's important to remember, no, Rabotai, it's not about us. Don't let people make you think that you're not that it's about you, and how about and whatever. Because look, Amalek showed us that it's not about us. He came to attack us. It's about the Ribono Shel Olam. Don't forget. Don't let Amalek let you forget that you're invincible because of Hashem. Lo amut ki ehyeh va'asaper ma'aseyah. I will tell the story of God. And our role is to destroy Amalek, to reignite, to reintroduce the world to the glory of God as being the one and only ruler of the world. As Hashem next time, now that we've laid the groundwork for how to come to war, and starting with peace, as Hashem next time, we will go to laying siege. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, amen.